So, as a review for Chapter 3, we're going to take a look at some of the examples in your textbook. One of the main examples I wanted to take a look at that would be considered more of a thinking type problem is on page 175, example 3. If you take a look at that question, it says this: a factory is to be built on a lot that measures 80 meters by 60 meters. A lawn of uniform width equal to the area of the factory must surround it. How wide is the strip of the lawn, and what are the dimensions of the factory? So as you can see, I drew a little diagram here. They said that, again, the factory is to be built on a lot that measures 80 by 60. So as you can see, I drew a lot here, a rectangle, 80 meters by 60 meters. Now the factory goes inside this lot, so I put a little rectangle inside the lot as well, and that's the factory, the little rectangle. And the factory has to be surrounded by a uniform width, a uniform strip all the way around. So that uniform strip, this little measurement has to be the same as this, has to be the same as this, has to be the same as this. And so I called that, all those measurements, X. They have to be the exact same all the way around. The second sentence, it says that a lawn of uniform width equal to the area of the factory. So you know that the lawn, the area of the lawn, just the lawn, has to be the exact same as the area of the factory. Okay, so I'm going to write that down over here. The area of just the lawn has to be equal to the area of the factory. So we can take a look at these two things. We have to come up with a formula for the area of the lawn, and we also have to come up with a formula for the area of the factory. Those two things have to be the same. So let's first take a look at the area of the factory. So if I take a look at the area of the factory, which is just this stuff, this shaded part in here, that's the area of the factory. We know that a rectangle is just length times width. So we have to come up with what the length of that factory is and what the width of that factory is. So we just need this little bit here, from here to here. Okay, so from this point to that point. And the area, or sorry, the length from this point to that point, if you take a look at this, we know that from here to here is 80. So from here all the way to here is 80. But we only need from here to here. So what is the length from here to here? Well, looking at this diagram, the length from here to here would be the exact same as 80. So this whole thing is 80. And if I subtract an x and another x, the x from both sides, that will give me the length here. So basically the length of this factory is going to be 80 minus x and minus another x. So 80 minus 2x is going to be the length. 80 minus 2x, okay? Because 80 is all the way across, and the length is just going to be 80, the whole thing, and if I subtract an x from both sides, that will give me the length of the factory. The width is going to be the exact same argument, except the width of the factory is from here to here. And so the measurement from here to here, I have to look at the bigger rectangle, and we know that this measurement is 60. Well, if I take away an x from both sides, then I will have just this width here. So again, the width of this factory is going to be 60 minus an x and minus another x. Okay, so it's going to be 60 minus 2x. That is the width of that factory. Okay, and of course I can expand this out so that it's already in standard form for us, because I'm going to have to do that later on anyways. And so if I do 80 times 60, I'm going to get 4,800, and then 80 times negative 2x is negative 160x. And then I have negative 2 times both of these things. Negative 2 times 60 is negative 120x. And negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4x squared. So I end up with this. And so area of the factory is just going to be equal to, I'll write this in proper order, 4x squared. 160 minus another 120 is negative 280x. And then plus 4,800. So this is the area of the factory. Okay? And that's what I can plug in over here into our original formula, because remember, the whole thing was area of the factory has to be equal to the area of the lawn. So this is 4x squared minus 280x plus 4800. Okay, and now I'm going to have to figure out the area of the lawn to put on this side so I can solve this thing. Okay, so I'm going to start that off over here, and area of the lawn, well, we know that area of the lawn, well, let's take a look at this area of the lawn. The area of the lawn is just this stuff, the white stuff, which is kind of hard to figure out because that is, if you think about it, how do you find just the white stuff here? Well, the way I would find that, and that's what makes this problem so difficult, the way I would find that is the area of just the perimeter here is technically the area of the big rectangle minus the area of the small rectangle. Okay, so that's what I'm going to write here. The area of the lawn, just the white stuff surrounding, is the area of the big rectangle minus the area of the small rectangle. But you also know that the small rectangle is just the area of the factory. So the area of the big rectangle minus the area of the factory will give you the uniform width. So doing this, I'm going to have the area of the big rectangle. Well, that's pretty easy. Area of the big rectangle, length times width. I know how to do that. That's pretty basic because I know that the length of that big rectangle is 80 and the width is 60, and minus area of the factory. So area of the surrounding part there is going to be length times width of the big rectangle. In this case, it's 80 times 60. So length times width, which is 80 times 60, minus the area of the factory. And the area of the factory I already know because I already found that. So the area of the factory is 4x squared minus 280x plus 4800. Now make sure that this is in brackets because that negative affects everything. So the area there of the lawn is just going to be equal to 80 times 60, which is 4800. And then this subtraction sign applies to everything in here. So minus 4x squared plus 280x and minus 4800. Continuing this, area of the lawn is just equal to, well, the 4800 minus the 4800 is gone, so I'm just left with negative 4x squared plus 280x. So this is the area of the lawn. And now that I know the area of the factory and the area of the lawn, I'm going to plug that in here because the whole question told me that the area of the factory and the area of the lawn have to be equal. So there's the area of the factory. The area of the lawn is negative 4x squared plus 280x. So I'm going to plug that here, negative 4x squared plus 280x. And so I have to find when this is equal to this. Okay? And I can find that by bringing everything over to one side equals 0. So I'm going to have 4x squared. I'll bring that negative 4x squared to the other side to be positive 4x squared. I have negative 280x. I'll bring this 280x to this side to become negative 280x. And then I have plus 4800. So continuing this, I'm going to have 8x squared. That minus that is negative 560x plus 4800. Okay? And so I am trying to solve for this. Now there are other ways of coming up with this formula. So if you figured out a way, or if you follow the textbook, the textbook's way, that's totally fine as well. The textbook and myself may do it a little differently, and that's totally fine. Just figure out how to come up with those two. So I'm trying to solve for this now. So remember, when I go to solve for these things in class, I always try to solve these things by factoring first. Okay, if you can factor, you know, that's, to me, that's always the best way. But if you cannot factor, obviously you have no choice but to use the quadratic formula. So continuing this, this is going to be 0 equals, I can factor out an 8 from all those things. So this is going to be 8, and that divided by 8 is x squared. This divided by 8, 560 divided by 8 is 70x plus, then I have 4800 divided by 8, and that is 600. Okay, so now I'm trying to factor this here. And I can use product sum integer. Product is 600. the sum is 70, and the two integers that I'm looking for, this is going to be 8 times two things here, and that's if it's factorable. So you're going to have to go and play with your calculator. Again, if